Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with your leave, I rise to lend my full support, my unabashed support to the bill currently before this Honorable House, the Appropriation Bill 2018-2017, and to say, Mr. Speaker, how proud and privileged I am to be an integral part of this Team Unity administration, a government of national unity, which has produced this outstanding budget, this carefully crafted budget. Mr. Speaker, you have heard the Honorable Mover of the bill, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, deliver a sterling budget address some 5 days ago, on Wednesday, 6th December, which gave an overview of the administration's performance during the past year, while highlighting significant plans and programs for the year upcoming.
See you next year.
This budget has received
See you next year. Merry Christmas to you too.
and continues to receive accolades from all and sundry here in St. Kitts and Nevis and throughout the region and among our people throughout the diaspora. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Finance reported to this House that for the fiscal year 2016, that the recurrent revenue for the fiscal year totaled $633.9 million. $633.9 million. Some $25.6 million more than the 2016 budget. We budgeted $608 approximately, and we raised revenue, recurrent revenue, of $633 million, $25 million more, some 4.2% more than what we budgeted. On the expenditure side, recurrent expenditure amounted to $512.9 million. So revenue was $633 million. Our recurrent expenditure, we took in and we spent $512.9 million. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was happy to report to the nation that the government's fiscal operations resulted in surpluses for the three main fiscal indicators. A surplus of $121 million on the recurrent account, a surplus of $121.1 million for the overall balance, and a surplus of $148 $1.5 million was noted for the primary balance. Mr. Speaker, the country running good.
Yes. They can't deal with it.
There was tremendous prudence, tremendous prudence by this government. We raised $633 million in our current revenue. We spent 512. We managed the money. And Mr. Speaker, I would want to say in this honorable house that this is our third budget. The third time that the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance has presented a budget in this honorable house for our team unity administration. 3 times. And each time we have shown that we can manage the finances of this country properly, with good sense, without any risk, which has put us at the top rung of all economies in the Caribbean. All of them. Our government has been able to maintain for 3 years since we get here the leading economy in the ECCU. The leading economy in the ECCU. We at the top rung. The country good. Forget all the song and dance and the hype they're trying to do to try to chip away. What is the fact? You can't get away from it.
Can't change the reality.
And Mr. Speaker, I happen to be a little long in tooth. My hair turned a little grey. So I remember when that government on the other side over there, led by those over there, came to office 20 years before, 1995. And Mr. Speaker, for the first 10 years,
deficit after deficit,
10 years, every single year, what a deficit. And those deficits, Mr. Speaker, and significant numbers of times, not once, not twice, not 3 times, was in excess of $100 million. They never knew where dots and zeros were. They took in some money and they just blow it, and they had nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for it. And Mr. Speaker, I don't have to go back for the period 1995 to 2005, 2006. Because the period since then has not been much better. There was gross mismanagement in this country. The country was run down, crumbling infrastructure, buildings crumbling in the public sector, and mold. But we'll get there.
Almost every building.
Mr. Speaker,
Education,
this budget that has been produced is one in which, as a Kittian and a division, we need to be proud. My colleagues, Mr. Speaker, who have spoken before me, each and every one of them, have all shown an enormous grasp and understanding of their portfolios, the work of government. My colleagues have shown that they have an understanding of the awesome responsibility that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis have given to us to provide for them. and for which we have been delivering over the past 34 months.
Yes.
Not quite 3 years.
Yes.
I hear them talk about 4 years. The hurry for 4 years to come. Not quite 3 years yet, 34 months
They're ready for the next
since we have taken office. And as this sitting of Parliament has gone on, and as the debate has unfolded, we have heard members of our team deliver comprehensive reports
Yes.
on their stewardship
Yes.
over the past year, and they have provided, they have laid out here in this honorable house for us and for the citizens listening exciting programs and plans to be implemented over the next year and years to come.
Yes.
Whether it be the report on the second cruise pier, which we hear was to be done and was in the pipeline, and which there were plans for. The plans were missing and then get fined,
Yes.
and it wasn't that.
Yes.
It was a different plan.
Yes.
It was to be 30 million,
Yes.
32 million.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, the pier could not stand up, could not hold and accept. The size ships are coming in down there.
That's not true.
I have been down there for the morning, for the day,
Yeah.
but I'm sure they got 4 or 5 big ships down there.
Misleading.
And Mr. Speaker, we understand the Cashman plan, the Sansa plan, this plan could not come on stream.
Yes.
It was in the pipeline,
It was in the pipe.
but the pipeline had a blockage.
Corruption was just
Okay? Mr. Speaker,
small, like that.
whether it be on the construction of the new state-of-the-art Bassi High School, and we hear another thing about Bassi High School this afternoon, you know. And Mr. Speaker, I wish we had the time to go into this Bassi High School.
Go into it.
Yes.
Go into it, man. Don't worry.
I won't be sidetracked because there's so many good things happening in St. Kitts.
You're running away from it.
Good things happening in St. Kitts and Nevis. Country running good, and you can't handle it.
Can't handle it.
Mr. Speaker,
They can
this construction in New Bassi High School has been one of the major projects that our cabinet has been dealing with over the last 2 years. We have had expert after expert, technical person come to us and give us advice. One select committee, another select committee, to look at the aquifer, to look at the building, to look at the various things. We have taken our time as a cabinet and been properly advised. We have been given the best technical and other advice as how to go about the school. Because when it is built, it will be a model. It will be the mantra of how schools should be here in St. Kitts and Nevis going forward and throughout the region.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, whether it is the critical infrastructure work to spur growth and expand the economy, with the start of phase 1 of the rebuilding of the Island Main Road,
Yes.
the Island Main Road, crumbling.
Yes.
When last has there been any work on the Island Main Road?
Can't tell.
20 years of neglect. 20 years.
False.
They were too
20 years of neglect.
That's no credibility.
busy doing nothing.
Because they kind of like
20 years, we hear about how much money there's we leave behind, how much money was in the treasury, and all of these things. And they can't fix the basic infrastructure of the country. Simple infrastructure, a road.
Yes.
We understand that this road will carry us forward as a modern small island state
Yes.
to be envied by all.
Yes.
The minister in his presentation was speaking about the expanding of the roads, straightening them. How wide? He says 24 feet wide. And it's not only the Island Main Road, phase 1, that begins next year, that will give us more impetus and growth and expansion to the economy, putting people to work at good wages. But what will start next year as well is the old road bed. The old road bed that has been undermined, that has been damaged for years and years and years, and no remedial work. Nothing done. Stone a drop off a hill on top of a car, blocking the road. Storm come, you can't pass, you gotta go the other way. The old road bed, a major artery in our country, needed for years. Urgent, strong leadership to be able to fix it. That begins next year, Mr. Speaker. This budget, you know, this is only a synopsis, a glimpse of what we're talking about. The Team Unity Administration has looked after the fiscal health of this nation and will deliver these projects over the next 12 to 24 months, reinforcing our commitment to make St. Kitts and Nevis the best small island state worldwide.
Yes.
And there's this snickering because he's saying, so doing, we will put our people first in a sustainable way.
Yes.
Sustainable because there would not be, once completed, there would not be any stoppage and interruption of daily traffic along Old Road Bay. People can live anywhere on our small 68 square mile island and have easy access in first class roads. It doesn't matter whether you live in St. Paul's, Keyon, Tabernacle, Sandy Point, Old Road. You are in touch with everywhere in St. Kitts and Nevis if you have a good infrastructure. And that just doesn't go alone to roads. And we won't have time to talk about the other things in the budget, whether it be utilities, electricity, water, or broadband internet. Because all of these make St. Kitts and Nevis stand out as a premier destination, a well-run state. We have heard too, Mr. Speaker, of the introduction of social programs to build capacity of our people, to support our people. Our students will benefit from the CDB funded TVET program, a major skills training program, a program that will see us have artisans to do technical work, construction, do all sorts of mechanical work. Whereas the traditional emphasis in education has been academic study, English and languages and so forth. There is a need to train our students who are just as competent in skills to give us that foundation of our country. And the TVET program, the Technical Vocational Educational Training Program, is being geared to do that. Program brought on by our Minister of Education, and who has worked to develop and worked to make sure that our education policy is launched. We have heard of the work done by the Social Services Ministry to provide for the listing of those of our citizens who will be given a social safety net. We have inherited a society in which there are pockets of people who don't have basic social needs. There are people in our society who do not have toilet facilities, cooking facilities. After 20 years, after 5 years of bounteous, according to those opposite, incomes in relation to SIDF and all of the CBI, $700 million, remember for number 2, was left in the treasury.
So he said.
So they said.
No, he was there, man.
Huh?
750
But people in this country, without toilet facilities, without basic social living conditions,
They didn't put
just
people
basic-
first, you see.
We are moving them over.
basic living things,
They didn't put people first.
basic things.
1% poverty. 1995. What's wrong with you?
Mr. Speaker,
Check the CDB report.
one of our key
1997.
campaign, one of our key campaign commitments, Mr. Speaker,
15%.
a living wage.
2000.
A living wage. People scoffed at us. How could this be done? How could this be done? And we say that come January morning, we will be leading this sort of in-depth testing and examination of our societies
Yes.
to find those of our people, those households who are making less, living on less than $3,000 a month. And those who live for less than $3,000 a month, before the end of next year, will be getting $500 a month. They will be getting a social safety net to lift their standard of living. Whether it is in health, with the construction of a new modern health center in Tabernacle, whether it be the introduction of the National Health Insurance Program to cover all our citizens, Team Unity has shown that it has lived up to and will continue to live up to its promise.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, this has been the promise of Team Unity. Lest we forget, we campaigned on a platform to build an economy, to provide an economic platform which would give all our citizens a higher standard of living, a better quality of life, whether it be low prices for food and basic elements of life. But it was not only along economic matters that we campaigned. Team Unity was also born and campaigned because the members opposite had a total disregard for our Constitution
Yes.
and the refusal to uphold
The law.
and be guided by the tenets of good governance.
Not only your
The previous Denzel Douglas-led administration went out of its way to abuse anything to do with good governance, the Constitution. This was what Team Unity was founded on. We must remember this. We promised a restoration of democracy in this country and prosperity for all. That's what our banners were 34 months ago. For 2 years, we went up and down the length and breadth of this country. Restore democracy, prosperity for all. Because the Labour administration of the day had messed up this country, abused our constitution, abused the basic contract agreement by which we lived. This Labour administration took us all for granted.
Yes.
And Mr. Speaker, we saw and our citizens believed that we would usher in a transformation of how government would be run. And we are proud to say here today, this last week, that we are doing just so.
Yes.
We are delivering.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I want us to spend a little time and speak about the legacy of Labour.
Yes. Go on.
Lest we forget
Yes.
the legacy of Labour. The legacy of Labour was gross economic mismanagement.
Yes.
Gross economic mismanagement.
Yes.
It is a legacy of trampling on the fundamental, basic precepts of good government, of good governance. And I want to repeat again, between 1995 and 2010, we were faced with years and years and years of deficit spending. The government spent more than what it took in.
Yes. Went bankrupt.
Went bankrupt.
Had to go to the IMF.
That government was among the worst in the world.
Yes.
The worst in the world.
Failed state.
When it came to the amount of debt we owed and the GDP ratio.
Yes. Debt to GDP.
And what is GDP? The GDP is gross domestic product. It's the worth of all of us, our earnings as a country, total, divided by our population. Gives us our per capita income.
Yes.
But the product is what we are worth. And so you can compare different countries who are small, who are medium, who are large. It's a measure by which the international community knows whether you're doing well or not, whether you're a failed state or not. So that, for instance, some of our neighbors have a very low per capita income. They have a low GDP because the product of the goods and services, what they produce, what toys go to them, what money spent, is very low. And if you divide that by the population, people ain't doing well. Gross domestic product, per capita income. These are the measures by which you determine whether a country is standing tall or falling down.
Yes. And we about.
And we say that this country in the Caribbean, St. Kitts and Nevis,
Tops the OEC.
is at the top rung.
Yes.
Nobody could deny it.
Sources, every credible institution.
Yes.
They try their best to say all sort of thing. They're not saying it so, you know. They say, well, we left it so. We left it so. After 15 years of $3 billion worth of debt, mismanagement.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I have a very quick, brief list of this legacy of Labour, because I don't want to go through each one of them. I'll be here for a whole week.
You're on the budget?
I'm on the budget.
You have nothing to talk about.
I'm on the budget.
Vincent point.
I joined this parliament, Mr. Speaker, in the year 2010.
Honourable Member, I hate to interrupt you at this point, but we need to take a break. We have to give consideration to our support staff.
Yes.
And so I will suspend the proceedings for 15 minutes.
Of Labour. Lest we forget the legacy of Labour. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, led by the Right Honourable Dr. Denzel Douglas, member for number 6. And I could start from 1995 and have alluded to a long period in our medium-term history, from 1995 to 2010, when we went to year after year after year of massive deficit budgets. And I said so in context to contrast the fact that in 34 months, after 3 budgets, this government has brought surpluses each time to the country of St. Kitts and Nevis. And these surpluses indicate an indicative of the progressive, the prudent, of the way in which the Team Unity administration has managed our finances. And I put that in context to the legacy of Labour. That in 2011, St. Kitts and Nevis was forced to go to the IMF, the same IMF that we have reports read about over the last couple of days. St. Kitts and Nevis went cap in hand, hat in hand, to the IMF to beg for over $200 million to save us from serious downfall and embarrassment
You should come crawling like a common.
in the Caribbean region and in this part of the world. That's the fact. We're talking about 6 years ago, not that far back. We in the government for 3 years. In 2011, we had $3 billion worth of debt around our neck as a millstone. Nothing could wipe that from us.
Each man in the country.
The dreaded IMF.
$1,000.
From the 70s, as a young graduate, we hearing about IMF, dreaded IMF, draconian rules and laws.
Yeah.
People have to go through all sort of hardship.
Jamaica saying they're sorry they went to IMF.
Hardship. And we followed that path in 2011. This ain't about the 5-year and 6-year-old wasn't born. These are teenagers who are alive. And what did that mean? What did it mean? It meant that electricity suddenly had a surcharge to conform to the terms of the IMF arrangements of 85%, 86%. Electricity prices one time, everybody, increased by 86%. So that if your business, electricity gone up, you pass it on to your customers.
Yes.
Your price has gone up.
Yes.
If you have family, your income withdraw smaller because you're paying 86% more on your electricity. You're nearly doubling
Disposable income.
what you're paying on your electricity. your standard of living must fall.
Yes.
Your quality of life is lowered. Hardship. But that's not all. People would remember how all of a sudden, when you could catch water in a pipe, suddenly they started taking pipes off the street.
Knock them down, yeah. I remember that.
Pipe was being removed throughout the alleys and so on here.
The public standpipe.
The public standpipe, you can't get a bucket of water.
Right.
You got to get a meter.
Yes.
And you know how much a meter can cost some people who already had? Water rates went up 600%. 600%. Whatever you pay for water, you multiply by 6. That's how much you have to pay. Again,
600.
your living expenses are significantly reduced. This is the legacy of Labour 6 years ago. And then what? The dreaded VAT. Suddenly VAT, 70% on everything. VAT? What's that? What's that? Food, medicine, all sort of things. Anything you can buy or sell, no is VAT.
Remember the famous 10 to 1?
VAT on goods, VAT on services.
Yes.
People seem to feel that we're talking about some sort of ancient history. It's 6 years ago.
Yeah, cultures.
And they're coming here today trying to say, oh, 2012, 2013, oh, the highest growth rate. Growth rate. Just growth rate. The country was going through a very dismal period. There's no doubt about it. This is a legacy of Douglas. Yeah? I don't think. What are we talking about? What do we get?
Remember the famous
Mr. Speaker, I joined this parliament on March 10, 2010 as a nominated senator on the opposition benches. I was here in the parliament during this period. So it's not just people telling me so. I hear. And you know what happened on March 10, 2010? Everybody on this side of the house, that was the then Labour government, had already been appointed to a ministerial position.
Yes. Yes.
Senator Carty,
Yes.
Senator Skerritt,
Yes.
whether you nominated or elected, everybody had already had a portfolio. And so we're ready to start the parliament now, the third arm of government.
Full ministerial portfolio.
We got a speaker nominated from the public by the government benches and voted in. But the Constitution also says that you can't start parliament without a speaker. First thing you must do. But more importantly, it said then, you can't start the parliament without a deputy speaker. And the deputy speaker cannot be a member of government, cannot be a member of cabinet, cannot be a minister. So what are they going to do? They look at me and ask me if I want to be deputy speaker. And I gracefully declined. First time in parliament, and they're busy. And so, my good friend Ricky Skerritt, minister then, resigned so that he could be nominated and elected as deputy speaker of this parliament. March 10th.
A couple of
Do you know what March 11th? Ricky then resigned from being deputy speaker, because we could start, they said. And then he get reappointed to all his ministerial posts. And Mr. Speaker, from the 11th of March 2010 until this parliament was dissolved on 27th January,
16th of January.
16th of January 2015, they had no more deputy speaker, you know. If you can't start,
And come to talk about.
if you can't start without a deputy speaker, if you can't start without a deputy speaker, how can you exist? How can you exist without a speaker for 5 years? And it begs the question for our country. Was the parliament properly constituted? Did we have a government properly constituted? Did the Douglas-led Labour administration run roughshod over the people of St. Kitts and Nevis? How could you operate that way? And we say that they were ripping up the Constitution.
Yeah.
They didn't care. Lest we forget.
They didn't care.
That's what we had.
Bourgeois.
IMF, VAT, 600% water, 86% thing. After year after year after year of budget deficits, running up bill, suddenly we have this thing coming and handling us. That's what the legacy of Labour was. I don't want to go on. 2012. We hear all sort of things in the country. VAT, IMF, all sort of stuff strangling us. Then we start to hear that the boss leader will do his own thing. Doing his own thing. Open a consulate in Dubai. And the foreign minister don't know.
Don't forget.
Cabinet don't know.
Don't forget he was running the country and not buried, you know.
But that's it. That's it. He got it back, baby. No regard for the constitutional basis of how government functions and forms. And I hear them today and last week, like if that is something removed, that's Mars, that's somewhere else. Lest we forget. When we say we needed to restore democracy, we needed to bring us under the Constitution, the rule of law, the administration of justice, we have to do things right. Mr. Speaker, it ain't easy. It's not easy. With all of these things going on, I recall it was the 11th of December 2012. 11th December 2012, when the members on the opposition filed with the clerk of this honorable house a motion of no confidence in the government of Denzel Douglas. The speaker wrote, properly filed, yes, and once he gets the time, he'll table it. This, Mr. Speaker, I have to mention, was the day after we heard that the then Prime Minister, Dr. Douglas, wanted to postpone the budget debate that was to take place the next day, at the 11th. No budget debate, because he ain't sure he got the votes. So he can't call Parliament, either for budget, and he don't want to call Parliament, because there's a motion of no confidence to be tabled, debated, and we believed we had the numbers to vote him out of office, 2012. With all these deficits, with the IMF in our throat, with everything mashing up, this is what was happening in this country. It was no piece of cake. The people understood what was happening. They had already been marching in the streets. And let me tell you about that too. Because they were marching in the streets. People were marching in the streets against VAT, They were marching in the streets by IMF, but the hardship. They were marching. 1, 2, 3. Largely popular marches. When I came to this honorable parliament, Mr. Speaker, I hear about gun. That gunman on the top of this building with long gun. That gunman in the street downstairs to keep off people. This country had become unstable.
She forget that she talking about the meeting.
Huh?
Army man with gun.
Gun around. Anytime you come to government quarters, gunman. Long gun.
Remember for number to forget.
Huh? Senior police officers. Squad cars, wherever they were, hidden away. They were there running this country undemocratically, would not bring a motion of no confidence to Parliament. And we said then that they were breaching the rights of members of Parliament. You don't talk about democracy, this and democracy, that. We said I went to court. We went to court for years and years and years, fought the battle in court. Motion of no confidence. And Mr. Speaker, this is the judgment of the High Court. Judgment of the High Court. The case eventually, after all sorts of machinations that we don't have time to go through, was heard in April of this year. April of this year. And this judgment was handed down on November the 7th. That's a couple of weeks ago. Half a week ago. In which the court states, after consideration of the parties' arguments and for the reasons that follow, the court concludes that every elected member or elected representative in the National Assembly has a right, an implied right, under Section 52(6) of the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis, to bring a motion of no confidence and to have that motion listed, debated, and voted on without undue delay and within a reasonable time. Reasonable time for the Denzel Douglas Labour Party had reached 26 months. They breached people's rights in here. They breached citizens' rights. I also conclude, the judge said, that this court has jurisdiction and the rights which are implicit in Section 52(6) had been violated by the failure of the Speaker to schedule the motion of no confidence for debate and to be voted on without undue delay and within a reasonable time of the motion being handed to the clerk or sent or left at the clerk's office. Finally, I conclude the court has jurisdiction under Section 96 of the Constitution to grant relief for that violation, and that the claimants are entitled to declaration sought, except those which the claimants are no longer pursuing because they are now academic. Restoring democracy. That was why Team Unity was born. The government of national unity was where you had Pamman, Sissy Man, you had Honorable Harris and Honorable Conda, Labour man, coming together. It was not a Pam fight. It was not a CCM fight. It was a fight of different, disparate parties, people coming from different parties, who sought to come together to erase, to eradicate
To return this country to democracy, man.
a dastardly,
Yes.
a dastardly pressure that was being put on us. And Mr. Speaker, I want to very quickly go through my point because I don't want to talk about the Vincent advisory. We talk about CBI, where the member for number 6, the member for number 6, the minister responsible for CBI, had removed, oversaw the removal Because he was responsible. He's the minister responsible.
Place of birth on your passport.
The place of birth from a citizen's passport were removed.
Nobody knows.
I'm a Kiddishan. I got passport and it ain't say born here. Kiddishan need to remember that. Nivishans need to remember that.
I said just no.
Then take it out of the passport
Born nowhere.
so that they could somehow offer more, give more applications to people who come from funny states. And I put it that way, funny states. Because the United States government in April 2014, April 20th, 2014, says that we will issue an advisory against St. Kitts and Nevis that they are harboring illicit actors in their CBI program. They're talking how we match up the CBI program. That's what happened. The Denzel Douglas Labour Party took the place of birth out of our passports so they could offer applications to people come from funny states,
Undesirable countries.
countries that could not have their people go to the US, to Europe, countries like Iran and Yemen or whatever. And they were getting, that is where they got all this lot of money, they feel. Because they could do something smart, clever,
Yeah.
underhand,
Yes.
damage this country's reputation.
Yes. Almost considered a rogue
You understand?
Almost a rogue state, you know. Yeah, the big-
Couple months later, Canada can't take no more. Because, what the guy name? Some fellow turned up there
Mogadam.
with a diplomatic passport. A diplomatic passport, not from Dominica, but from St. Kitts. A St. Kitts diplomatic passport.
Yeah.
Say you want to talk to the Prime Minister of Canada. We don't have the Prime Minister of St. Kitts send him, but he got St. Kitts diplomatic passport. Magadam. Next thing Canada pull visa-free access from us. Damage our reputation. Got us in the mud. We fathers. Mr. Speaker, I want to quickly talk about a couple other things. That's good because I'm using my time. Senator's bill. When the Labour Party see us got more representatives, elected representatives, in the opposition over there than they had here. They don't want to go to Parliament. They don't want to have the motion on no confidence tabled and voted on. But they got to do other work in Parliament. And so, they bring somebody off the street, you know. They bring somebody off the street into Parliament to vote on a bill when the person had no right. You ever hear some nonsense? I wonder how they sleep at night. The Constitution mean nothing to them.
No.
And when should nothing on the Constitution bring somebody off the street into the Parliament to pass a senator's bill, increase the number of senators, so they can get the business to the Parliament. And it's important lest we forget. This is where we went for years and years in this country.
And you have to cut them court again on that too.
We had to get in court again on that. And the judge again said unconstitutional. This government has been unconstitutional. Not once, not twice. Unconstitutional. My fathers. And then this thing about boundaries. Secret mission. Secret mission to change boundaries.
Yeah, remember,
And I don't want to tell you about the whole process because we're here forever. But I just want to give this one story.
yeah, remember the,
Because everybody know about the 16th of January 2015,
and number two is the
when there was a collapse in this country. People frightened. The Denzel Douglas administration surreptitiously, secretively, behind everybody's back, call a parliament.
Gestapo tactics.
Gestapo,
Yes.
Nazi Germany,
Yes.
behind everybody's back, to change boundaries that nobody know.
Yeah.
And you know what, Mr. Speaker? I happen to be there, you know. Premier Amory happened to be there. Premier Amory and I were 2 members of the Constituency Boundaries Commission. You know who were the other 2 members? Then Deputy Prime Minister Earl Aston Martin. And the member for number 2,
Yes, she was there.
the Honorable Marcel
She
Olaibad,
was right there.
were in the same Constituency Boundaries Commission. 1 floor up, right above us here. We meet.
We got 3 minutes.
Huh? Half past
3 minutes for a
Half past 3, we sitting there with whether to do this boundaries thing. None of us telling us anything. And when they get up and then decide they want to sign this thing, I can't go in and really find about the details. Premier Amory refused to sign. They didn't tell us nothing. And as we come down the stairs, we see people busy. Only to know, after 4 o'clock, a police officer went up to us with a notice for Parliament at 4:15. Huh? 5:04, I get a notice for 4:15. The Parliament. Nobody else know. Parliament doesn't start. And we could go through what happened there. And people once again learn what injunction mean. Huh? Unfortunately, we all know what happened next. But Mr. Speaker, lest we forget. That is the legacy of the Labour Party.
light and democracy. 3 minutes.
Even after all of that, Mr. Speaker, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis on the 16th of February had their day of deliverance.
Yes.
A day when the people voted for the promise of Team Unity. And Team Unity has delivered. VAT removed from food, funeral expenses, medicines, school supplies, short order. And even if you look at the reports that you see here, prices, consumer price index, falling by 2.something%. They've not gone back to where they were before 2015. The prices are still significantly below where they were 3 years ago.
Yes.
Team Unity bring down the cost of living for the ordinary man in this country.
Yes.
Prices come down. Huh? You go buy what you want in the supermarket. Supermarket opening up all night now. Huh? People want so much food all night.
Yes.
$16 million for sugar workers.
Our demand.
Paid. Huh? Whip what? And the electricity surcharge removed.
Yes.
We can't forget that too, you know. That brought prices down in this country. That is why when you hear what surpluses on budget and how good the country is doing, it ain't just happens up.
Yes.
Oh, it's labor. Labor with $1 million deficits.
Yes.
This year is prudent government, good governance for these people. But, Mr. Speaker, I could go on and on and on to remind this country of the hardship that we endured, we the people endured, when there was a Labour government in place, led by the Right Honourable Douglas. When the member senator was there, the member for number 2 was still there. Y'all were there, part of it. And y'all gone under, y'all forget.
Yes.
The people shall not forget. And we remind them.
Very nice, AJ.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take a quick segue and tell the people that even while that is happening, we are doing their business. We are giving them better in this country. We are making things better for them, for the people. We are putting the people first. We are sustaining them. I hold the responsibilities, Mr. Speaker, of Attorney General, Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, and Communications. And I would want to report to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis on these areas. It has been a period of challenges the last 34 months, because we have to do a lot of turning around, a lot of cleaning up, and we are still working on that, and will continue to do so. It has also been a period which has been very exciting, as we have worked to resolve these challenges and provide for a clear direction as we move forward. We have done a lot in a short space of time. 2 months and change. 2 years and change, sorry. 34 months, not 3 years yet. But we have been transforming this country. You just got to drive across the Bay Road in the morning to see the boats coming in, these large cruise liners, and they didn't start coming yet. Wait till the second pay bill. Mr. Speaker, the Office of the Attorney General is created by Section 64 of the Constitution. And as such, the Attorney General's chambers plays a pivotal role in the administration of justice and the rule of law in the Federation. The duties and responsibilities that lie within the remit of these chambers are many, and therefore must be properly financed. It is expected that in 2018, that these chambers will be allocated some $12,288,000 that will include specifically for the Attorney General's chambers, to emoluments and others, the sum of $10,945,000. And because we now have appended to the Attorney General's chambers the sum of $1.3 million for the electoral office, that will cover emoluments to the workers there, the staff there, to the registration officers, the supervisor of elections, and to the Electoral Commission. We are not involved in the day-to-day operations of the office. That is the remit of the supervisor of elections, and he is supervised by an Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission, Mr. Speaker, has on it someone appointed by the Prime Minister for the government. But there's also someone appointed by the leader of the opposition, the member for number 6, on the opposition benches. So, for the government, we now have Mr. Joseph Liebert appointed on the commission, former
Assistant
Commissioner of Police. And on the government side, the opposition side, there is lawyer Jason Hamilton, former Attorney General, who is also on the commission. And the Governor General, in his own deliberate judgment, and he would have discussed it with the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, has appointed lawyer Nazibu Butler to be chairman of the Electoral Commission. Lawyer Butler is one of the oldest practicing lawyers in the Federation and has had wide experience in a number of areas. So that is what the Electoral Office does. And, Mr. Speaker, I want to speak very quickly as to what the Attorney General is and does. He is charged with several functions which are conferred upon him by the Attorney General's Act, Cap 3.02. The Attorney General is the principal legal advisor to the government. In this regard, the Attorney General's chambers is responsible for advising the government ministries and departments on all matters of law connected with such ministries and departments. The Attorney General's chambers advise on a wide range of matters which include simple contracts, traffic accidents, employment, constitutional and public law matters, and international law matters, including treaties. The Attorney General also advises the government upon all matters of a legislative nature and superintends all government measures that come to Parliament. This means that all legislation that we have here in the National Assembly is either drafted and vetted or vetted by the staff of the Attorney General's chambers before it is presented to the National Assembly for consideration. The Attorney General conducts all litigation for or against the government or any ministry or department of government. During the course of 2017, there were approximately some 83 claims against the government, up from 64 from 2016. This figure comprises claims filed in the Magistrates Court, High Court, and matters pending before the Court of Appeal. During 2017, we would have had some 210 written requests for advice in addition to verbal communications or oral communications. The AG's office is a service department, Mr. Speaker. So we will not have reports about accomplishments that will be exciting. Some of the matters are very complex, some are simple. They are ongoing and require certain confidence, which would derail positive outcomes if not dealt with prudence and discretion. The Office of the Attorney General remains cognizant of its role as gatekeeper in upholding the tenets of transparency, accountability, and the rational application of the laws. Having been thus strategically poised at the vanguard of the meaningful function of the government, the efficient running of the chambers undoubtedly requires the necessary fiscal support, as we have mentioned before. Mr. Speaker, I want very quickly to indicate that the focus of this ministry will be on increased efficiency and capacity building by decreasing the response time between requests and response in relation to matters submitted to the Attorney General's chambers. We must say that we get requests urgently, and we are not always able to respond as quickly as we would, partly because of limited resources in terms of staff, and so there will be the addition of senior crown counsels to the staff in the first quarter of 2018. These senior officers will work with our junior crown counsels to help us to deal most readily and speedily with some of the matters that come to us that are somewhat complex, as I have said. We will work to provide continuous professional development for Crown councils and have improved access to resource materials for Crown councils. Importantly, we'll institute the use of enterprise emails and document sharing facilities with the introduction or implementation of a hybrid digital document management system for the Attorney General's office. Mr. Speaker, I would want to suggest that democracy is not a one-time achievement, but it is that a process, a journey, a singular goal that is ever sought to be attained and to be constantly reached for. We need to elevate our country above self. We must first be willing to nurture and promote likewise a deep abiding love for our country. A deep abiding love for our country. We have to be faithful and loyal. We must have affiliation for our country. We must have a love for justice and a love for those who do not necessarily think or behave like us, and yet who are equally entitled to the same protection of the rights under the law. The Ministry of the Attorney General, Justice and Legal Affairs, stands like a watchman upon the walls of our Federation. This pursuit is multifaceted, multidisciplinary, complex endeavor. The challenge is to safeguard the rule of law from all angles, both from a national perspective within our borders and from the regional and international dimension. One of our challenges that we have is our fight against threats of corruption, money laundering, and terrorist activity. We understand that we must equally fight against the things that tend to feed into these activities, like illegal drugs, offenses against the person, trafficking in arms. We recognize, Mr. Speaker, that the things that threaten us internally also threaten us externally. And to this end, the Ministry has been ever cognizant of its partnership with all our domestic stakeholders, such as the Ministry of Finance, Customs, Law Enforcement, and Financial Services, as well as our wider partnerships with the OECD, MESISIC, and CFATF. Our obligations within the global forum highlight the need for integrity upon all fronts by seeking to identify persons, activities that would be tantamount to tax offenses. MESISIC is an outflow of the Inter-American Convention Against Corruption, to which St. Kitts is a party. I had the privilege and honor to represent St. Kitts as a three-member panel of experts that went to Ottawa, Canada, to review that country's compliance with the Inter-American Convention there and against Mississippi. St. Kitts and Nevis had been exposed to such a review in 2014, and we should be preparing ourselves over the next year or two to do a similar study. This looks at questions of employment of public servants. It looks at questions of procurement in the public service. It looks at the influence of politics in the public service, what rules there are, and who should be. Very interesting in their discussion earlier. Can someone be a member of a political party and still work in the public service? Can they use their affiliation to destabilize the government? And these are questions that when we have debates like what we had earlier with the member for number 2, we need to take very seriously. Because the question is, if you back a party, we expect you to do your work properly.
Yes.
We expect you to be professional. Yes. You come to work and you give a proper day's pay. There are many supporters of Team Unity who want to know why so and so still working.
Yes.
The Labour, you still got them working. They should go home. And all that, the member for number 2 went and said, there are a lot of people, most people are working. A lot of them support the Labour Party. They have not been sent home. If they do their work well, they have a right to be employed. If they mess up, if they are going to sabotage, to hide a file, if they're going to disrupt the business of the government, they will be dealt with. And there is a process by which they will be dealt with. The Human Resources Department and the Chief Personnel Officer will indicate to the Public Service Commission who will meet and adjudicate.
Same human resources.
Same human resources.
By them.
This is the law.
Yes.
This is the law that has been recently done under them.
Yes.
There is a process. People can't just send home somebody like that. Because they have rights too. And the question is that questions like Mississippi and our participation in international conventions bring to earth what we as a country must do. And I cite in the context too, Mr. Speaker, that we believe that we must conduct ourselves differently from how the Labour Party conducted themselves for months and months and months leading up to the last election. How they operated outside of the Constitution in a lot of different ways. And for us to believe that we are legitimate, we must uphold the rule of law. We must believe in what we do and do things right. And we have to do that, Mr. Speaker. I want to speak as well, Mr. Speaker, about CFATF. I call it CFATF, for the acronym is Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. This works with member states to bolster their systems in war against money laundering, terrorist financing and related activities. Mr. Speaker, the several acts of terrorism that have unfolded both in the Americas and across the globe this year alone powerfully demonstrate that these issues remain a clear and present danger against peace, against order, and good governance of our nation states. In that regard, the nature of the inroads that we seek to make against unlawful activity is reflected in the 2018 proposed legislative agenda. It is anticipated, Mr. Speaker, that a bill to combat the unlawful enrichment from criminal activity would form part of this agenda. Additionally, an anti-corruption bill would also feature in our legislative objectives, as well as the reviewing, revamping, and giving the force of law to the Integrity in Public Life Act. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the fight against corruption, we are ever mindful of the need to fortify our advances in the achievement of good governance. And in that regard, a few familiar pieces of legislation would form part of the legislative agenda. These would include freedom of information, data protection, tenure of the Prime Minister's office. Mr. Speaker, I refer to these matters as being familiar, since from time to time they have made various appearances on the agenda or have been discussed in this Honourable House. This is so because the government is committed to undertaking deeper, more meaningful consultations and to ensure that the people of the Federation are actively involved in the governance process. At the end of the day, public awareness, education and participation are also hallmarks of a healthy democratic process. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, this government of national unity passed some 15 bills into law, into act. The Banking Act 2015, there was an amendment to the Decision Act in 2015, Stamps Amendment Act, Administration of Small Estates Amendment Act, very important, that expanded the threshold of those who had small estates. Someone in the family died, and they had a vehicle worth $20,000. They couldn't get title to it because the small estate was only up to $5,000. We expanded it to $95,000, and so in a simple process, we have been able to have more access, as it was, to ordinary folk to help them to possess and move forward with their business. There was Anti-Terrorism Amendment Act 2015, Evidence Amendment Act, Criminal Procedures, and a number of others. In 2016, Mr. Speaker, we had some 15 more laws passed into, acts passed into law, bills passed into law. And it's important to note that, because I have not gone back to the period 2012 to 2015, when this parliament was moribund. When that happened, we hardly ever come to parliament. There was nothing happening because they're afraid to put the motion of no confidence on the table. And so since this government has been here, to the government of national unity, we have brought stability to the affairs of government and passed into law a number of matters that will be helpful to us. In 2017 to date, Mr. Speaker, we have passed some 16 more bills into law. Advanced Passable Information Act to assist in combating terrorism and criminals who want to travel and so on. The Civil Aviation Agreement Act, Immigration Act, Trust Act, Firearms Amendment Act, Bail Amendment Act, and Land Registry Act, Title registration and so forth. And it is intended for 2018 that we will continue to do a series of legislation to assist us, including such things as the Mental Health Act bill to make changes to existing legislation to bring it in line with the contemporary international and regional best practices. The Medical Act to make changes to existing legislation to bring it in line with contemporary regional initiatives. Nurses and midwives, national conservation, environmental management, food safety, plant safety. All of these we will be bringing before this honorable House. And I must, there's one more, speak to one more bill, and that is the bill in which we will be modifying the Magistrates' Code of Procedure that will abolish the use of preliminary inquiry in the Magistrates' Court. And so we believe make more efficient to speed up delays in the application of indictments in the criminal justice system. One other one I should mention as well, and I note my good friend and colleague, Premier Amory, member for number 10, would like to hear this one, that we intend in first half of 2018 to bring before this honorable House a new labor code. And so that was something that would redound to the benefit of all workers in giving us a proper labor process in this country. Mr. Speaker, if I may, Mr. Speaker, how much more time do I have?
7 minutes.
The regular time. I want, Mr. Speaker, to quickly speak to some of the departments that operate under the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. But before I do so, I must mention the DPP's office. The DPP's office is an independent office as well. The DPP is governed by the Constitution. And so there should be no interference by the Attorney General into the work done by the Director of Public Prosecutions. The Director of Public Prosecutions has the right to bring matters that are placed before him by law enforcement. And so, as we have moved to increase and improve the administration of justice, the criminal justice system, we have found that it is necessary to increase the number of lawyers, counsel who appear there. And so in the new year, we will be appointing a senior Crown Counsel to the staff of the Director of Public Prosecutions. We noted, for instance, that in 2017, some 33 cases were completed by the Director in the High Court in the St. Kitts Circuit. In Nevis, there were some 40 matters that were brought and dispensed of in the High Court in St. Kitts and Nevis. As far as the Court of Appeal goes, their breakdown, there were some 20 matters that went before the Court of Appeal, 3 of which were withdrawn, and there was some 2 had their sentences increased, 4 people had their sentences reduced, and 11 others who had appealed against conviction had their matters dismissed, and the ruling in the High Court stood. Also in 2017, Mr. Speaker, one matter, Warrington Phillip against the Director of Public Prosecution, was heard by Her Majesty's Privy Council, which body dismissed the appeal against the murder conviction in that case. We expect that there will be significant training done for our staff. We have had the attachment of a cadet, and that we have been utilizing the new facilities of the Georgian House to house our DPP's offices and chambers. There are a number of challenges that we are addressing. We would like to see more of our Crown Counsel be involved at the Magistrates Court level to assist the police in handling matters at that level, because the Crown Prosecution Service, which involves police prosecutors, work with the DPP very closely in dealing with matters at the Magistrates Court. But the DPP looks forward to be able to have, as it was, the abolition of preliminary inquiries, the PI, that are normally conducted by magistrates, that can take a long time for people to go from having committed an offense, from being charged, and for their matter to be heard in the High Court. We now will be moving forward to what we can consider to be paper committals on the basis of affidavits, that these will reduce the time necessary for matters to be heard. In terms of the High Court, we have had a number of matters that had been filed in 2016 and 2017. In 2016, we had something like 710 matters that were being filed. In 2017, to the 5th of December, that figure was about 650. And we have found that in 2016, some 210 matters were disposed of, while to date, we have had an increase of 250 matters in the High Court that have been disposed of. I should point out that this increase in disposal of matters at the High Court is due principally, Mr. Speaker, to one of the major accomplishments of this Team Unity administration since taking office. A major plank,
Honorable member,
yes.
time has expired.
One more time.
Mr. Speaker, I'd appreciate if I can have 30 more minutes, please.
The question is that the Honorable Attorney General has requested an additional 30 minutes. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. 30 minutes time allotment has been granted to you, sir. I would ask you to hold, as I would now call on the Deputy Speaker to take the chair.
Madam Deputy Speaker, welcome. I was given an overview of my stewardship in relation to the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, and had indicated, I was indicating that the ministry has oversight and support for the high courts, the magistrates court, the Office of Intellectual Property, the registry, and legal aid, the Office of Legal Aid, among others. And I wanted Madam Deputy to report first, as I have done, on matters that had been before the court, the High Court. But it would be remiss of me not to signal to this Honorable House and to the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis the fact that the Government of National Unity had indicated in its manifesto that it would move to create a second court here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And within the first 2 years of taking office, we have accomplished this feat. In the Sir Lee Llewellyn Moore Judicial Complex, we now have 2 High Court chambers, one which is dedicated to the conduct of criminal matters, and one which predominantly looks at civil matters, so that we now have the ability to have criminal cases determined all year round. Previously, there were 3 periods during the course of the year where there were criminal assizes. 3 periods, in January, in May, and in September, would have been the criminal courts would have been had. We had 1 judge appointed in Bastille. But we have now been able to get the assurance from the Honorable Chief Justice, and she has already fortified us with a second judge who sits here in Bastille at the same time as the criminal court meets and sits. So that whereas during assizes, civil matters could only be heard on a Friday, and normally generally applications as many as 26, we now have a resident Queenie judge who can sit and does sit Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday throughout the year. And this has greatly improved access to justice for the ordinary citizen. It means that our criminal justice system and the general administration of justice has significantly moved forward with a reduction in the backlog of cases that we had here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I said this, in 2 short years, 34 months, our justice system has significantly improved. And I want to add that with the legislative program that we are embarked on early in the new year, that this would see even more efficiencies brought into the whole program. We will continue to focus on improving access to justice, and in particular in the criminal justice system, and following up on our appointment of a second High Court judge to St. Kitts and the second High Court chamber, which has allowed one to be dedicated to criminal matters and which has already seen a reduction in the backlog of cases, we will pass into law in 2018 legislation which will do away with preliminary inquiries in criminal matters and indict by paper committals, which it is expected will further reduce delays in the criminal justice system. This would give our society, our community, would give to victims more peace, that their matters can be settled. We have had situations where in the past, juveniles 11 and 12 might have been abused. And when they actually get to court at 16 and 17, who was a small nasty child at 11 and 12 now looks like a grown young woman. And it influences the jury in situations like that. We expect that the delays that our systems of justice had by speeding up the process to bring them to court will give the system more efficiency and will give our people more comfort that those who have done wrong will be brought to justice in a timely manner. We intend in 2018, Madam Deputy Speaker, to establish a mediation center at the judicial complex. And what is a mediation center? A mediation center will allow matters that have been filed in the criminal courts, in the civil courts, to go before a mediator to see if such matters can be resolved, can be settled before trial. And this is intended to, again, reduce delay in the administration of justice, give greater access to the court system, and to resolve matters that can create such delay. We will also be looking to open a third magistrates court chamber in the Sir Lee Llewellyn Moore Judicial Complex. Currently, There are 2 chambers. We have sitting in Basia 3 magistrates court, but we intend to create a 3rd magistrates court that will be dealing with family matters, juvenile matters, maintenance matters, and so forth. A lot of the juvenile matters need to be had in camera. That is, without the public being available to sit in. But such a chamber would be built along with a mediation center in the first, during the 2018, and we expect that to be completed somewhere in the first half of next year. A high priority on the national agenda has been to reverse the low rank we have had in the ease of doing business index, influenced by delays in the registration of titles, deeds, and other land documents. The establishment of a dedicated land registry will be done in 2018. Legislation has been passed in 2017 to separate such a land registry from the High Court registry, and an experienced registrar of lands has been appointed. The new registrar, the person taking up this job, is one Kitishan by the name of Mrs. Dawn Chambers Myers, who has worked for more than 10 years in Barbados in a similar role, has been a permanent secretary looking in the Ministry of Lands there, and so has vast experience in helping us to establish this new court, this new registry, and to work to help us to adjust and improve the way in which we can get these matters dealt with. It's important to note that with the addition of a 2nd court chamber, it's important to note with the increase in the number of matters that are now going to be brought before the courts. It's important to note with the management of a new mediation center that the current High Court registry would have been overburdened anyway. And so that with the new registry being open, it will be a win-win situation for both registries, and we expect that there would be more efficiency involved there. There will be the initial separation of the 2 registries, where plans to digitize records to facilitate e-filing and searches online are ongoing. And continue to modernize and transform the legal and justice system departments in conjunction with the court will expand the use of technology. Madam Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, I want quickly to look at the Magistrates Court, where we have had in 2017 498 criminal matters filed. 434 of these were disposed of in 2017. The civil list had some 1,265 matters were filed, while 1,406 were disposed of. And I should point out, the larger number being disposed of meant that some that would have been filed in 2016 came over 2016, and our court system has been able to move them more efficiently through the court system. Some 750 maintenance matters were filed and 689 disposed of, while 427 matters in the traffic courts were filed and 325 disposed of. Domestic violence, we had 53 matters being filed and 29 disposed of. We are concerned that this is a relatively low ratio, and we hope that that can be improved. While in juvenile matters, 13 matters were filed and 7 disposed of. We would hope to note that for traffic tickets in 2017, from January to September, some $238,350 were paid for traffic tickets. fines for criminal and traffic cases were 177,421, and the filing fees paid by way of postage stamps 18,975 would have been paid. We would hope that during the course of 2018, these fees for filing cases will be reviewed, and that with the support of the courts, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, we would be increasing court fees for the maintenance of our court system and criminal justice system. And so that would be a report from the Magistrates Court. Very quickly, the Registrar of Intellectual Property reports that there has been significant movement in relation to the registering of copyrights in our country. Copyrights have to do with the fact that when we have different products that are being listed by shops, they have to register them. And that should be trademark applications, and copyrights have to do with the question of intellectual property. We're talking about music, literature, songs. It has to do questions and in relation to questions of, in some cases, trademarks generally. The whole question of the Intellectual Property Office is one in which we hope would continue to go and move forward, as we would want to encourage young people and the creative arts in St. Kitts and Nevis to expand and grow. We would hope that our cultural efforts would see more and more people being able to get the benefits of their work through the payments, the registering and payments of their work. I want, before quickly, just to mention one more thing, and that has to do with legal aid. We do have a legal aid clinic, and it has been doing significant work throughout St. Kitts. The one senior director who has been working exceptionally hard and who has introduced the process of doing legal aid clinics around the island of St. Kitts. In 2016, when she was appointed, she did some 35 such clinics, and in 2017, we expect that she will complete 40 clinics that will cover a whole range of locations in all parts of the island in different areas. The services provided at legal aid include, but are not limited to, legal representation in both magistrates and high court. In the magistrate court, appearances have been made for the plaintiff, complainant, or defendant, and so forth. The magistrate court matters for 2017 have included cases relating to child maintenance, custody, access, landlord and tenant matters, that is, questions of arrears of rent, and recovery of possession of premises, and breach of contract. However, in the High Court, most matters done concerned divorces, breach of agreement contract, power of appointments, such as guardianship, deed poll, deed of change of name, succession, that is, those who would have made wills, written wills, or who, not having a will, would need what is called letters of administration, in which the estate that is left behind can be devolved to their relatives and those who they leave behind. Conveyancing, affidavit of loss, passport, and affidavit of thing. The legal advice and legal assistance in matters about land property disputes, abusive and threatening language, malicious destruction of property, hire purchase agreements, death, guardianship, and or adoption were provided. And additionally, assistance in completing passport, citizenship, and other forms were also provided. These are all government departments in the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, and together they assist ordinary folks, many of them impecunious, who don't have any money, who can't afford to go to a lawyer, to get before the court and do legal things to help them with their lives. Could be that their father might have passed away and left a car, and they can't afford to have it transferred to themselves. Legal aid can help them. They might have property and so forth. So that the government has provided an office that goes out to the people in the rural areas where we can assist those who need assistance in a number of other ways. Madam Deputy Speaker, I wanted, before I move quickly to speak about the Ministry of Communication, just to say a quick word about the Electoral Office and the fact that we have had, as we all know, there is, today is the date of the nomination for local government in Nevis. And I would want to report to this Honourable House that the reports from the Electoral Office, supervised by the Supervisor of Elections and by the Electoral Commission, is that they are ready, that the systems are up and in good order, and that they expect that everything would run smoothly next week, Monday, when there would be local government elections in Nevis. I would want to indicate that we would, in the new year, be bringing to this Honourable House, that is the government, a proposal, a bill to amend our current National Assembly Elections Act to assist us in advancing what many people have been speaking of as electoral reform. Electoral reform, for many people, is different things. And for the most part, it has to deal with the question of registration of voters, the voters list, and it will deal with re-registration. This would involve, clearly, the involvement of the populace of St. Kitts and Nevis. What do we do? And I just wanted very quickly to let everybody know that we will be going back and looking at what had happened in 2007 when there was an amendment to the then National Assembly Act, and that we would also build on the fact that since then there have been a number of anomalies that need to be aware of people. I want just to raise one anomaly before I move quickly on, and that is that the population of St. Kitts and Nevis after the 2011 elections and the latest update on October 2016 was that it was 47,195 inhabitants, 34,918 in St. Kitts and 12,227 in Nevis. Of this number, approximately 34,177 of our inhabitants are 18 years and over. That is, these are who are eligible to be registered to vote, who reside here in St. Kitts and Nevis. One has to be 18 years to qualify to vote. The register of voters for January 31st, 2017, at the beginning of this year, contained 42,812 registered voters, 32,061 on St. Kitts, and 10,751 on Nevis. Based on the foregoing, there are approximately 8,600 overseas voters who do not reside in any country in the Federation, but by their numbers can affect the election of representatives to the government. This I'm reading from a report that has been handed me by the Electoral Office, and I draw it to the attention of this Honourable House, which would form one of the factors that must be dealt with in any form of electoral reform or debates to be had when we come to Parliament early in the new year in 2018. Madam Speaker, I want now to turn very quickly to the question of information and communication technologies. And as Minister responsible for this, I am pleased to outline several new investments that underscore the administration's continued commitment towards open innovation and national ICT infrastructure development. In 2017, that should be 2016, the International Telecommunications Union, ITU, in their Measuring the Information Society Report 2016, ranked St. Kitts and Nevis number 34 worldwide in the Global ICT Development Index. This was a jump of 20 places over the previous year. And the nation, St. Kitts and Nevis, won 2 awards for being the most dynamic country in value and rank from among 175 members worldwide. And we intend to build on this success. The recent publication of the 2017 index report shows we have slipped 3 places, but nonetheless, we are some 20 higher than the next OECS country, and only Barbados is 3 places ahead of us at 34, taking over, we are now 37. And so we have been able to maintain our significant work and profile in relation to the indicators related to ICT development worldwide. Indicators look at things like education, they look at issues of use and ease of using the thing in terms of broadband, whether by mobile or fixed lines, and investments. And we have shown by per capita that we have been among the best in the world in terms of what we do, in terms of information and telecommunications. In 2017, initiatives were undertaken to address threats to information assets, as well as digitally transform traditional manual work processes. Worthy of mention is completion of repairs to the National ICT Center. This renovated center will now provide an innovation ecosystem to foster co-creation. And I would say that early in the new year, we'll be having a formal launch and opening of the center. The new or the revamped National ICT Center has been rebuilt at the cost of some $1.6 million with assistance from the Republic of China and Taiwan. And we are grateful for the assistance. But it also required and did have significant inputs from this national unity government. The Cybersecurity Incident Response Team. This is a service organization responsible for receiving, reviewing, and responding to computer security incident reports and activity. Will be housed at this center. So too will be an internet exchange point. An internet exchange point an IX or IXP, is a physical infrastructure through which internet service providers and content delivery networks exchange internet traffic between networks. The internet exchange point, very simply, is where we have different broadband internet providers. Say cable and wireless, the cable. And you're in one room and you pay cable and wireless, and your spouse in another room and they pay the cable. But if you were to send each other an email, such an email goes off island by undersea cables, maybe to North America and back here. And we say that by the introduction of an internet exchange point here on St. Kitts, where agreements have already been agreed to by service providers, we reduce that expense, that time, give us more efficiency, and it allows for local content providers to develop new businesses. It is exciting. It allows us to expand our footprint in terms of the work in ICTs.
Honourable Member, your extra 30 are left.
I'll just wind up. Thank you very much.
5 minutes to wait.
Thank you very much. We will have at the center a Pearson View test center that will allow services for testing and certification, Microsoft, and a whole range of other things. The deployment of state-of-the-art security software suite to reduce the risk exposure of government servers, desktops, and mobile devices from viruses, malware, and other malicious attacks was also implemented in 2013. But we have been involved in a whole range of software development applications, whether in agriculture, whether it is with the police in cybercrime, whether it is with the trade, shoppers, whether it is with inland revenue, to be able to do vehicle registration and so forth. We have been working seriously to expand our footprint, to enter the world of Internet of Things, where our young people will be able to go and expand and find a new footprint. Finally, as I wind up, the center, the new National ICT Center, is going to be an innovation hub. We'll be having incubation, room for incubation startup businesses, where they'll have assistants, they'll have equipment, and we expect this to be a landmark spot for all those who have the creative juices, whether you're into robotics, whether you're into other forms of media. This center we see as a model that will move us to the next stage and the next step in terms of where we are as a country in terms of ICTs. The government will be expanding its fiber network, its government-wide area network that will cover all government buildings next year. We will be using enterprise applications to be able to move data and so on, to make us more able, better able to provide citizens with better services. You want to do a passport, you should be able to set up your home and be able to get your birth certificate and everything done online. You should be able to get your driver's license online, pay your taxes online. We are working assiduously to digitize a lot of our records that will make us easier to function in a more efficient I'd want, Deputy Speaker, on that final note, to wish all of St. Kitts and Nevis a wonderful Christmas when it does come. I'd want to say a big thank you to the staff and the various departments that I oversee have worked very hard during the course of this year, have been very dedicated. I want to spend a special thank you to the Solicitor General, who has worked exceptionally well, my new PS, who has been working well, and all the heads of department who have done much to advance the work of the ministry that I oversee. And I would want to wish members of this honorable house on both sides happy Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes. May it please you.